Hello and welcome to this new video where we will be drawing this cute little bird with Inktense pencils. It's been a while since my last video. Some things has happened in life and I haven't simply had the energy and time to make another video, but now I'm back and we are of course starting again with a beautiful little bird drawing. As you know, in this channel there are lots of bird drawings and lots of water-soluble mediums, so that's what we are combining today. I decided to work with Inktense pencils today, but if you want to use your regular watercolor pencils or even your water-soluble crayons, that's of course totally fine, and you should be able to follow along in this kind of real-time tutorial using whichever medium you choose. The sketchbook I'm using today is by Fabrano, and I will have all the details in the description below, so if you want to check the exact colors and paper I'm using today, you can check the description box. But just briefly, I'm gonna mention the colors that I'm using today in the Inktense range. So we have mango, amber, poppy red, sun yellow, tan, antique white, sepia ink, baked earth, neutral gray, and madder brown. So I'm just using these 10 Inktense pencils, and I started by making a very quick sketch using a Derwent drawing pencil, which I think is wonderful for just, making this initial sketch. I don't like to sketch so much with the Inktense pencils because then once I start activating, I will be activating the pigment with water. I will of course lose some of the lines, so I like to use a regular either just pencil or colored pencil to make the first drawing and first sketch. Then once the sketch is done, we will follow my usual method and process. So I will first add the first layer of color, and I usually with Inktense I make a couple of different layers where I activate the pigment with water, and then I also use these pencils without activating them, so just as regular colored pencils, to add the final details and interest to the final picture. So in this little sketch you will see all those process steps, so this is also perfect for you if you are more new to Inktense or just want to have a very simple and easy, also beginner friendly sketching session. During the past weeks, spring has absolutely finally come also here in the northern Europe, and we can see loads of birds outdoors. They are building their nests and singing from the early morning hours and late evening, and it's just so lovely to see all the nature come to life and all those magical little things that happen every day. So this is also the perfect time of the year to be sketching your birds. If that's a subject matter that interests you, you can just walk outside and see all those little fellows doing their daily tasks, and I find so much inspiration and joy just, sitting outside and watching the birds. So that's also one reason why I decided to share this little bird sketch with you today. But as you know, on this channel we actually sketch birds all year round because birds are just so fascinating. As you can see, when I'm adding the first layer of color here, I'm moving the pigment around. I didn't add too much of pigment, and that's one tip I have for you. If you're new to Inktense pencils, then you might struggle how intense the color actually is and how much pigment the pencils release. Just be careful with the first layers. You can add so many thin layers on top of one another, and usually the end result is much easier to control that way. So don't add too much pigment straight away, but add just a little bit, move the pigment around, have a good quality paper. That always helps with water-soluble mediums, but especially with something like this, because it's, as you can see, it's easy to move the pigment around once it is still wet, Inktense dries pretty fast, and then it might be much more difficult to activate it again. And if you have already activated all the pigment, it might actually be impossible to activate it again. So my tip is to use and work on thin layers, adding just a little bit of pigment on each layer, move the pigment around, and that way you can also get these really beautiful color mixes. That's also why you don't need that many pencils. I'm only working with 10 here, and even though, yes, I know 10 is not really like super limited palette, I have different browns and different yellows and so on, but still I can create so many different shades simply by mixing these together. So Inktense pencils are wonderful mixing medium. So if you haven't tried that already, please do. You will be surprised and probably having loads of fun. The 10 Inktense pencils I'm using today are from my spring palette of Inktense pencils. If you haven't seen that video yet, I will have it linked in the description so you can check that one out. But as those of you who've been following my channel for a while already know, I like to create these curated limited palettes for each season. This really helps me to, first of all, discover new colors and discover new ways to mix and utilize different pencils that I have, but it also inspires me because I just have the exact perfect spring palette always at hand, and I don't have to go through the 100 pencils to find the colors I need. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but for me this makes loads of sense, and that's why I like to work in these limited palettes. The spring palette so far has been amazing. It has been covering all the needs I have. I have just a couple of pinks and brighter greens, but then I also have these beautiful, more like natural, neutral browns and grays and greens, which work really well with different kinds of birds and other nature subjects matters. So perfect palette so far, and I will be sharing more about this also in the upcoming weeks, and I will also share my summer palette with you pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. Once the first layer is dry and we have the first initial color layer in place, it is time to start adding the second layer of color. And at this stage, I'm starting to add more of the dark browns and those shadows and details, trying to create as much contrast as possible and also create that interest and depth to the picture. This is exactly why I love to work in layers, because I think the first layer often it just is a kind of colorful canvas that I can start building on. And this is also why it's very, I would say, fast and easy to create something quite impressive and something quite powerful with your Inktense pencils, because they layer so well and you can create so easily these wonderful contrast and details with these pencils. This video is by no means sponsored by Derwent or the Inktense range. This is simply a medium that I enjoy, especially for these kinds of quick nature sketching sessions. I think it's just so easy to use, easy to control, and you can create wonderful, vibrant effects. And that's why I really enjoy using this medium. You can also see that I'm using kind of pretty small brush at this point. This is a synthetic brush by Holbein. This is one of my favorite brushes to use with Inktense pencils or any other water-soluble pencils and crayons. This is just a range that I really enjoy. But as said, you can of course use any kind of brush you have at hand, but I would say that to use a small enough brush and one that doesn't hold too much water. That's why I really enjoy these synthetic watercolor brushes for Inktense pencils, because they don't hold too much water. Whenever I'm using watercolor, I want my brush to have much more capacity to hold loads of water. But with these pencils, you want to be able to control the amount of water a bit more, especially when you're making something more detailed and small scale like I'm doing here. So just something to keep in mind, that if you struggle with your Inktense pencils or you don't get the outcome that you want, there might be several different factors impacting this. You might want to change the brush or the paper, or simply the way you layer and the amount of pigment you put down. So it takes time to master the skill, or I would say not even master, but be comfortable with it. But I assure you it's worth the struggle, so take your time. As you can see here, I'm just building the layers, and that way I'm leaving parts of the previous layers still visible. We can get really beautiful effects and interesting textures that way. So again, it is worth getting to know your colors and your mediums and what you can actually create with them. I hope that you enjoyed this a little quick sketching session I hope that your spring has been filled with beautiful nature subjects and some things to sketch every day. Or if you are in the southern hemisphere and experiencing autumn at the moment, just embrace it and enjoy. There is so much to discover and see throughout each season. But as said, I hope that you enjoyed this little video, and I hope that you also enjoyed the real-time format. I know that it wasn't too long, I'd say, but it was a bit longer than those time-lapse videos that you also can find on my channel. But sometimes I think it's just fun to share the real-time experience so that you can also follow along if that's something you want to do. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. I will try to get back to my normal rhythm of 1 or 2 videos per week. As said, the previous few weeks have been crazy in so many ways, and I hope that now it's again a bit calmer and I can get back to the normal rhythm. So I hope to also hear your wishes and your ideas of the future videos. If there is anything special, particular you'd like to see, please share in the comments below. I'd like to hear your wishes. I'm currently planning my summer videos for the upcoming months, so there is plenty of room and time still to get your special wishes also on that list. But as always, I hope that you will enjoy your own art journey, and I hope that you will have a wonderful time and also wonderful days filled with art during the upcoming week or so. And I will see you very soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.